Today is seemingly the day for Switch news, or Switch rumours should I say more properly, as to start things off we have some potential information about the architecture of the machine. Now we have two sources who have, unsurprising to no one, decided to remain anonymous, who have said that the Switch will not, I repeat not, be powered by the Pascal architecture as most people have kind of been expecting, but instead the older Maxwell generation. Now, this actually has a pretty tangible knock-on effect if true, as this will mean that the console's performance estimates are considerably lower. Now, while we don't have a precise number yet, according to these sources, the Switch won't be able to compete with the original launch PS4 from Sony. Now, of course, these numbers will depend on exact clock speeds and configuration of the chips inside the machine, but we can tentatively assume the low 1 T-flop range is what the machine will sit at, assuming of course we have nothing abnormal about the design. Now you might be wondering, well, why did they use Maxwell over Pascal then? And apparently it's time. It's hardly a secret that the Wii U didn't do too well, and Nintendo basically wanted to kind of quick join the race. Now, of course, another benefit of having Maxwell over Pascal is the pricing. A Maxwell-based Tegra solution, as we do know, of course, that it does have a Tegra GPU, will be cheaper to produce than if Nintendo had opted for Pascal, obviously then keeping the price of the console down. Now, of course, we have absolutely no real information from Nintendo about the RRP. It has popped up on a few stores about $250, but we have no idea of how official this is. It could be that, or it could be less than that, it could be more than that. I mean, $250 sounds about right, but of course I have nothing to base it on apart from the rumours that I just mentioned. So, interesting stuff, and of course it does point to the Switch being pretty low powered if true. The source from our very own website, redgamertech.com, will be linked in the description below. But we also have some potential confirmations on some patents that have leaked today. Now, of course, we do have the reveal, sort of full reveal, coming in January, but we've had the leaks of some patents which seemingly confirm a bunch of reports which were floating around in the months previous to the reveal. Now, of course, do take everything here with a pinch of salt, as even if these patents are correct, it's not necessarily indicative of the final product, but it's still a pretty good indication that the reports were accurate and still gives us a few interesting little tidbits about the machine. So let's take a look, shall we? Now, the patents suggest that the console will be charged by a USB-C port at the bottom of the handheld device. Now, we can't see any other charging on the handheld, so if that's the case, when it's in kickstand mode, it probably won't be able to be charged unless, of course, they give you the right-angle USB-C adapter in the box. We also can see what seems to be a micro SD slot, which will presumably be for expandable memory. Now, the patents also show a head-mounted display peripheral for the console. Now, we don't really know what this is. Could it be for VR? Could it be for some sort of AR? Is it neither? The natural assumption is VR or AR with a head-mounted display. Now, VR, I'm skeptical of, because with this being a handheld that apparently, again, this is not confirmed, doesn't have any extra hardware in the actual dock, I would kind of raise an eyebrow at it being VR. AR would probably make more sense, but again, this is all based on rumour and speculation, so we just don't know. It would make sense for it to be either. I just have concerns about the specs if it is VR, but of course I don't know the specs, so those concerns are based on not much at all, to be honest. They're just based on what we know about the machine, the fact that there have been claims that it doesn't have any extra hardware processing power in the dock, and that it is going to be just all encased in that slim sort of tablet, which does of course means that the hardware within is presumably going to be fairly limited. It doesn't stop there, however, as it does confirm that the system and the controllers support not only rumble, but motion control. Now, I did kind of raise an eyebrow at the motion control rumours that surfaced a while back, because I thought, well, who's going to use the motion control if you're just playing your Switch on the bus or the airplane or whatever? You're going to look like a fucking crazy person. But apparently they've gone for it, if these rumours are correct. Of course, you know, assuming this feature is not mandatory, you could probably just ignore it, but it still is an interesting choice nonetheless. Now, these patents also show that it does have some kind of IR sensor on the bottom of the right-hand controller, which of course is something that we also discussed quite some time ago. And also, you may recall that there was that weird rumour about the share button going around. Now, these patents do seem to confirm its existence, but they do refer to it as a record button. So perhaps this is literally, hey, record some footage, and then you can maybe upload it onto the internet via some sort of, feature like the PS4 Share or the Xbox One similar feature. But it's interesting that it's a record and not a share button. I don't know if I'm taking that word a bit too literally, if it's just literally, hey, record and then share. Perhaps you have some sort of editing component in between those two. Or maybe it's just a choice of phrasing and it does exactly what you would expect. Either way, it's an interesting choice. I mean, perhaps this points to a change in tune with Nintendo, because, let's be real, they have not been the best when it comes to YouTube. They are very trigger happy when it comes to copyright claims and of course copyright strikes. I flat out do not use Nintendo trailers in any of my videos because, well, it's just going to get claimed, and despite fair use, they're just going to let it sit there, basically. So if they're going to allow people to share footage direct from the console, does this point to a change in attitude, or does this point to, hey, we should at least allow this and then, take half the money because we're Nintendo? I don't know. Fingers crossed that it's a change in attitude, but let's be real, let's be a bit cynical for a second. It's probably not pointing to that. It's probably pointing to, yeah, you can share this on YouTube, and yeah, you can share this on Twitch or wherever, but, we're going to take some of your money. That's probably what it is. Now, while these patents do not confirm any specs, as in the guts of the machine, we don't know anything about what CPU or APU or whatever it happens to be inside. However, it does confirm something really interesting, in that the Switch does have higher performance when docked by simply altering the clock speed and the fan usage rather than anything that's actually inside the dock. So we will see better performance when it's docked, but not because there's an extra GPU or whatever inside the dock, but literally because it's probably going to be underclocked when it's docked and in mobile mode, as it were, and then obviously gone back up to normal speed when it's docked within the device. Now, we do have a bit of a rather lengthy description as to how this works, and I will kind of give you the cliff notes, but if you look on screen you will see a screen grab of the patent, which I've taken from Let's Play Videogames.com, and it reads, quote, now, in the present embodiment, the information processing device 1 changes its operation mode depending on these two modes of use. That is, the information processing device 1 can operate at least in two different modes of the portable mode and the console mode. In the portable mode, some of the functions of the information processing device 1 are limited, the details of which will be described later. In the present embodiment, in the portable mode, the clock frequency range over which the CPU 81 is allowed to operate is limited. In the present embodiment, the clock frequency at which the CPU 81 is allowed to operate can be specified within a predetermined range by the program executed on the main Unit 2. In the portable mode, the range over which a clock frequency can be specified by the program is limited as compared with that in console mode. For example, the range over which the clock frequency can be specified in the console mode is x1 Hz or less, whereas it is limited to under x2 Hz in the portable mode. Note that if the main Unit 2 includes a GPU in addition to the CPU, the range of processing power will be limited for the CPU and or GPU. In the present embodiment, in the portable mode, the image rendering capacity, which also can be referred to as the image generating capacity, is limited. Specifically, in the portable mode, the resolution of images generated by the main Unit 2 is lower than that in the console mode. So basically, the TLDR of all of that is, while it's in the portable mode, it's going to have a lower clock speed, and it's also having a lower resolution, and the amount of computation to be executed, to use some of the phrasing from the patent, is also limited, and that is again to reduce both power and heat generation. So it seems this confirms those previous reports that there's no extra hardware inside the dock other than, hey, this is just a display thing to get it on the TV. It's literally just the brain, the actual heart of the thing is in the tablet. The dock is just so it's on your TV. There's no extra power in that, which does point to a fairly limited power. But of course, I say that, and yet mobile GPUs and all of this stuff for like netbooks and so on is getting crazy powerful, to the point where it's not that much less powerful than like a mainline PC. So perhaps it'll surprise me, but given that they're probably going to keep this fairly cheap, I'll be surprised if it's like super high end. But, you know, of course, I could be completely and utterly wrong. I am basing this off very little information at all. So feel free to call me out in January if it's wrong. But, of course, you know, I'll just throw my hand and say, hey, what did I have to work with? Bupkis is the answer. Still interesting, though. Nonetheless, we have some interesting and very interesting stuff seemingly confirmed. Again, this is a patent. Just because a patent exists doesn't mean it actually will be made into a thing, as we saw with that debunked controller patent a while back. So we should remember that just because it's on the patent doesn't mean it's on the final thing. But I would imagine, given how close the patent actually looks to the thing that we saw in the trailer, that this is pretty accurate. I'm just saying, it's a rumour, treated as such. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.